Welcome everyone to the 135th Celebrity Synastry chart reading, where we will be looking into Taehyung and Park Hyo Shin. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Adeline and it is so nice to meet you. On this channel, I look at the dynamic between two celebrities using astrology. For those new and returning, I take notes on a Synastry chart looking at the personal planet, signs, aspects, and of birth times available house overlays. I share these notes and add my extra insights and interpretations along the way. So if that sounds good to you, subscribe and click the bell to join us weekly, and let's get right into this one. Starting off with the sun, we have Taehyung's sun in Capricorn and Park's sun in Virgo. These are both earth signs. It's a dry relationship and they're a good business team. Park enjoys serving Taehyung and it's a practical and grounded relationship, and Taehyung helps Park to be more efficient. Their suns are trying together, so there's mutual respect and they energize each other. They are supportive of each other and they're cooperative with each other, which we did literally just see with like Park serving Taehyung and also Taehyung helping Park to be more efficient. They can deal with conflict in a healthy way and they accumulate wealth and luck, which is where I assume like their good business team would come in. They're obviously good because they accumulate that wealth and luck. Taehyung's sun square Park's moon. There's a basic misunderstanding and there are practical disagreements. Park sees Taehyung as too rational and selfish, which I feel like could potentially come from, because we did see how Park enjoys serving Taehyung. There is that potential of Taehyung taking advantage of Park in that way, of his serving nature and all of that. So I wonder if we'll see a bit more potentially if that really is the case. Taehyung sees Park as too sensitive and there is general discontent. Park may feel resentful towards Taehyung over time. So yeah, from what we're seeing so far, it seems to be rooting from that, potentially Park serving Taehyung too much, potentially being a bit too generous, so hopefully we'll see a bit more. Taehyung's sun is square Park's Jupiter. They have different values and they may overindulge each other. I mean, from what we are seeing, I feel like this overindulgence could be from Park to Taehyung, but again, I'm a bit of a record player. Hopefully we'll see a bit more with that. Excess is from good intention and they have a strong desire to make each other happy. Park has the ability to cheer up Taehyung and they both may expect too much from the relationship, which is potentially maybe related to do with the wealth and luck they could potentially accumulate together. They both encourage the other to self-indulge and be impractical. Taehyung's sun square Park's Saturn. Park sacrifices his freedom. He's very much from the beginning so far now, he seems to be a bit of a doormat. Like, in all honesty, I hope we'll see a bit more maybe like why this is the case or something like that. But so far, he seems to be a bit of a doormat for Taehyung, which is very weird, because I'm sure, I don't know what Park does, because obviously Taehyung is a, musician and all of that. I assume Park would be in a sort of similar role. But this to me so far, it seems like Park is like some sort of assistant Taehyung, if that makes sense. Like in my head, I'm seeing like The Devil Wears Prada, where it's like Andy serving Miranda Priestley and like Taehyung is Miranda. Maybe not to like that sort of extent, but Park is in that position of Andy's where he is like this sort of like doormat doing everything for Taehyung. There is good intention, but it's not ultimately doing the best for Park, if that makes sense. Taehyung is too sensitive to criticism, which we did see that he thinks Park is too sensitive to criticism, so that could be just a mutual thing. They think the other is just a bit too sensitive. They both attempt to help each other, which I think we did see that they are supportive and cooperative with each other, so that is kind of repeated there. Taehyung may outgrow Park and they both feel mature, which we did kind of see like a bit of a deterring factor you could see with Park feeling resentful towards Taehyung over time. You could kind of see Taehyung outgrowing Park as like another sort of deterring factor, like there is an element of moving on from this. Park tends to be too critical of Taehyung and Taehyung feels blocked and discouraged by Park. I feel like this is just as a result of the resentment Park picks up, because we have been seeing like there's a strong desire to make each other happy. The excess is from good intention, which I feel like is mostly linked with Park from what we have seen. So I feel like there was some good intention with Park's generosity, you could say, but there, it's not surprising to see that that would eventually deteriorate, which we haven't seen. Taehyung sees Park as all the traditions he wants to overcome, which looking at the year of birth, Park is older, which I probably should have looked at before saying he's like an assistant to Taehyung, because I mean, he still could be, but there is like a bit more there is a few years between them. So I wonder, I don't know if Park, like there really is that generational difference potentially with them, and maybe the way they grew up and all of that, that is there potentially that little age difference they have. Otherwise, I'm not sure what other traditions there would be to overcome there, but that's there. They both need to really want this relationship to work, agree. Park's Sun square Taehyung's Pluto. It's love-hate, not surprisingly so. There's a strong magnetic connection, and it is transformative, which we did see how they both will mature here, and also Taehyung outgrows Park, so that's there. They both trigger the other's deepest issues, and there are power struggles. I imagine, because now like that year of birth, I should have looked at that before, because that kind of like throws things a bit, because, you know, Taehyung being younger than Park, like Park being the older one, you know, there's obviously that sort of like power in terms of his age and everything. But then reading this reading, you wouldn't really know that, like, you know, Taehyung seems to be the one in more power here. So there is that, like, I imagine that is where the power struggle would come in. They both need to learn not to focus on their ego, which I feel like could potentially be due to the sensitivity. Like, we did see they both feel the other is too sensitive, which you could see that maybe their egos are a bit, you know, threatened, for lack of better words, in like a less so way. You know, the egos are a bit more like sensitive here. It's hard to remain just friends after, which is, yeah, I'm not really surprised to see there seems to be an end to this. They want to learn everything about the other, and there's a possibility to encourage the other's negative qualities. The only thing I'm really seeing in terms of like encouraging the other's negative qualities is in terms of like Park being a bit too generous, you know, that sort of like fall in a way, like being a bit more on the naive side, like a bit too soft and all of that for Taehyung. And potentially, I mean, honestly, not surprisingly so, Taehyung could be very appreciative of that, and not necessarily thinking, you know, to like stop Park from doing that, because he is obviously benefiting from it. So in that way, I feel like Taehyung could be encouraging a more negative quality of Park's. I would really want to see more, because I feel like so far it seems like Park, not the bad guy, but I feel like there's a lot of negativity focused on Park here. I'm curious to see a bit more Taehyung in this relationship, possibility of an unhealthy obsession with the other, and they both experience emotions they never felt before. They both want to be dominant. Yeah, in their own ways they are, but obviously those power struggles we did see exist, so that's there. Now for the intermission. This video is brought to you by me, my Etsy store, Adeline the Astrologer. If you ever watch this and think, hey, I would like her to read my Synastry chart, well, I will. I do personalized Synastry readings on my Etsy store, both basic and detailed. The basic one is very simple to understand. It's not overwhelming at all. It's pretty good for those that are beginners to astrology, just getting the head around astrology, or just as a fun gift idea. The detailed one is just like what I do on my channel, just a lot of insight and interpretation on your chart. So if you are interested in that and everything else astrology and tarot related, readings and gifts, then definitely check out my Etsy store. Links are below. I'm always releasing new things, so definitely check it out if you're interested. You can even just favorite the store just to show your support for free. Thanks for listening, and let's get back to the reading. So now it's time for moon. We have Taehyung's moon in Aries and Park's moon in Libra. These are both cardinal signs. They need to adjust to each other, and Park often goes along with Taehyung. This guy, they're drawn to the complementary qualities, and Taehyung doesn't put as much effort in as Park. I want to see, like, when I was saying I want to see more of, like, Taehyung here, because I feel like we're seeing a lot of, like, Park and what he's doing, how he feels here. And not as, compared to Taehyung, we're not seeing as much. This is not what I was necessarily wanting to see from Taehyung, that he's, like, you know, it's all supportive of Park being a doormat. Park is the good girl and Taehyung is the bad boy, which we haven't seen a whole lot on Taehyung's end in that way. But I feel like Park being the good girl, I mean, very stereotypical in terms of, like, not questioning things, a bit more naive, a bit more, like, you know, sweet to a fault and all of that. he definitely seems to be playing that role. Taehyung's moon opposite Park's Venus. They both learn balance and harmony, and living beyond means occurs, which I think we did see, like there was excess. The excess is from good intention and the generosity, so that is there. And obviously, like, we haven't seen it a whole lot. Like, I think we've only seen it once or twice where, like, they accumulate wealth together, so obviously they have the means to live beyond their means. It is easy to take each other for granted. Yeah, they will not appreciate each other sometimes, and Taehyung may be undervalued or misunderstood by Park. I'm leaning towards misunderstood because I feel like Park seems to value him from what we are seeing, but I think there is a bit of misunderstanding in terms of, like, I guess how Taehyung is interpreting Park's help and all of that. Compromise needs to happen, which we did see they both really need to want this relationship to work, so I assume that would be from a place of compromise. Park gets confused with Taehyung's emotions, and Taehyung sees Park as narcissistic and seductive. Ooh, that would be an interesting element if, like, Taehyung was interpreting Park's actions as, like, not necessarily, like, the most honest. Like, there is a bit of, he thinks maybe there is a bit of deceiving, like, if you're helping me, obviously maybe you want something from me or something like that. Park sees Taehyung as childish and needy. I mean, it is kind of, in a way, I don't want to say like a sort of parent-child dynamic because we haven't seen anything like that. But in terms of, like, if Park is, like, serving Taehyung, you know, it is that sort of, like, you know, it's a baby, you kind of have to do everything for it type of thing. Taehyung's moon is square Park's Mars. It's a stormy relationship, not surprisingly so, and it's an emotional roller coaster, which we did see how Taehyung's emotions Park gets confused of his emotions. So I wonder if maybe it's more emotional roller coaster on Taehyung's end. They both will need to work out issues as they come, and there's a difficult relationship emotionally if there are children. So I'm not sure if they have children of any kind. With this one, the way I normally interpret this, like, outside of, like, you know, relationships where people have kids, is that sort of like colleague dynamic or friendship dynamic where obviously the relationship changes because of, you know, one of them or both of them having children, and that change in dynamic, you know, creates emotional strains or some kind of strains in the relationship. So that is the way I interpreted this. So if they don't have children, but potentially if they did have children, the dynamic would change. Hopefully that will make sense. Park doesn't have the patience to connect with Taehyung's feelings. Interesting. So I assume his help is very, like, superficial. Again, I keep seeing, like, the assistant type, like, dynamic in my head. Like, it's like Park is, like, you know, getting, like, coffee for him, but doesn't necessarily really care about Taehyung. You know, he's just doing all, like, practical serving things for him. They're very reactive to each other, and it's hard to relax together. Possibility for codependency, in a way, yeah, because, you know, it seems like Park is kind of benefiting off serving Taehyung, and obviously Taehyung would be benefiting off what Park does for him. Resentment can grow, which we did see on Park's end. Park's independence makes Taehyung feel insecure. Oh, which, again, it's not really shocking because obviously Taehyung wouldn't be getting the same help and all of that. Taehyung's moon at Trine Park's Neptune. Taehyung picks up on Park's needs. Interesting. You would think this would be the other way around. I see, this is what I kind of wanted to see a bit more, like, you know, a bit more of the, like, the insides of Taehyung, like, sort of, like, more into him and all of that, like, which we did see, like, we have been seeing, you know, the emotions he has and everything, but I feel like before we didn't really get a lot from him and how he feels and all of that. They inspire the other, and art is a shared interest, which, you know, they're in the music industry. I assume Taehyung is. I assume Park would be in a similar artistic field. They sense each other's feelings, and they share a sensitive and mystical worldview. It's a mystical meeting, and they both uncover the other's blind spots. You would hope so, because they both have very interesting roles here. Taehyung's moon opposite Park's Pluto. Jealousy and emotional manipulation is an underlying element. Not something I wanted to see in this. It's already weird enough as it is. Park can sense Taehyung's unconscious needs and uses it to manipulate him. That that's mean. I mean, obviously, but like, because we've been seeing, it seems like Taehyung is a bit more like emotional here. We haven't seen a whole lot with Park and his emotions. I don't like this. Because, like, we've been seeing how Park can seem to sense, like, his emotions, but doesn't necessarily care about it. And now we're seeing, like, he uses it to manipulate him. I'm very curious, like, what Park's intentions are. Like, I kind of see Taehyung's point of view, like, because we did see how Taehyung sees him as narcissistic and seductive. I'm kind of getting on board of that. Like, what is Park's intentions here? Because it's starting to get a bit weird on his end. He's very strange to me here. Park has a controlling power over Taehyung, which potentially could be the age thing. Both need to learn that love and control are separate, and they will need to work on power struggles, which we've been seeing, the power struggles. So projecting is an issue. Oh, that's weird. It's unstable and explosive, and Taehyung's need for safety and belonging leads him to being taken advantage of by Park. I don't really like that since Park is older. I wonder if maybe, like, I'm not sure Park's situation at all, but I assume he would be in the music industry like Taehyung if they're in the same circles, especially since this was like requested. I assume they would be both, you know, people of significance in their own right. But it's, I don't know, maybe there is a situation of like, because Park is older by a few years, I wonder if maybe Park has had some, I don't know, industry insight or something like that. He was in the industry a lot more, and maybe Taehyung saw Park as like some mentor of some kind, and I don't know, Park just, you know, took advantage of that. There's something really weird here. I'd be very curious if you guys are like fans of these, especially Park. Like, what's Park's deal? Especially in relation to Taehyung. I'll be very curious if you guys have any insight to that, because this, I mean, we're only at Moon, so we'll see more, but it's very odd here. Park's Moon at Trine Taehyung's Venus. There is mutual appreciation, and it is easy to compromise, which I'm really glad we're seeing some positivity, because we did see they need to make compromises, need to make effort to make this work. So I'm glad we're seeing like they're able to kind of, you know, compromise, hopefully. They're a social couple and they appreciate art together, which we did see. They are supportive of each other during conflict, which we did see, like going back to the beginning, they are supportive of each other and everything. So I'm glad that is repeated here. So now it's time for Mercury. We have Taehyung's Mercury in Capricorn and Park's Mercury in Virgo. These are both earth signs again. They prioritize practical daily matters, which is not really surprising to see. This generally feels a bit more on the practical side, especially with Taehyung's emotions, you know, being a bit like, I don't want to say taken to the back burner, because, you know, it's like Park is keeping an eye out on it and everything. It's still in his eye line, but not necessarily like a priority or something he really wants to like look after. They accomplish goals together and the relationship can get stale easily. I wonder how quick this was, like this, whatever, I don't know, this friendship, this business partnership, whatever this is. I wonder how quick it is, or it, you know, has been, or how long it was and all of that, because there is very good potential, like, you know, if Taehyung is like very quickly suspicious of Park, and then this whole thing would all, I think, come to a halt, because it seems like the relationship like halts to a certain point where like Park feels like he's taking advantage of, he's building this resentment, and, you know, I wonder like if that all lasted very quickly. You know, they both tend to neglect their relationship, which I think we've definitely seen on Park's and with Taehyung's emotions. So the emotional relationship definitely neglected. The Mercury signs are trine together, so there is easy communication and they solve problems similarly, which I'm glad we're seeing some, like they're on the same page in some ways. They enjoy learning from each other and there is mutual understanding. There are complementary ideas and thoughts, and they hold similar views, which I assume this would be more in like a business sense of things. Misunderstandings are unlikely, which I assume again it would be more in like a business sense, because in some other ways it seems like maybe not necessarily misunderstanding, probably a bit of a miscommunication, a misinterpretation of like and just straight up not knowing what the other's intention is. Taehyung's Mercury opposite Park's Mars. They likely bicker a lot, and Park tries to force his opinions on Taehyung. We get these glimpses of hope, and then Park is just being himself, I guess. He's very weird to me here. I'm not really seeing a whole lot of positivity on his end. Taehyung feels his intelligence is threatened by Park, and Taehyung's thoughts may rub Park the wrong way. In what way though? I feel like potentially Taehyung not really, I guess, misinterpreting the help and all of that, or potentially just not taking advantage of it, but just, what's the word? He's potentially just not appreciating Park in the way that maybe he wants to be appreciated. It seems like taking him for granted is the word. It seems like Taehyung is potentially just taking Park for granted and all of that. So I think in that way, he would rub Park the wrong way. Park wants Taehyung to be more docile. Ew, I really want some, we've seen bits of positivity, but then this is weird. I'm not liking this, energy. He feels very weird, Park. I'm not liking it. Park frequently interrupts, and it is difficult to live together. I'm not really shocked. I don't really want to see these people living together. It seems like business-wise, they seem to be fine. I think it should just stay that way. They go to the studio, make music, if that's what Park does, honestly, because I should have looked a bit more into what he does. But I assume in the whatever musical thing they do, they just go do the whatever they have to do and just leave and not talk to each other, because ew. Taehyung's Mercury sextile Park's Uranus. They attract opportunities as a couple, and they encourage the other's visions, which I'm glad, creatively, business-wise, they seem to be fine. Taehyung finds Park intellectually stimulating, and they're perceptive and intuitive of each other. See, normally I'm this is nice, this is great. I just don't like how we saw everything about Park, especially how we saw he is perceptive of Taehyung's emotions, and he's the deeper side of him, and he's taking advantage of that, which I don't like. Especially because we haven't really been seeing a whole lot on Taehyung's, and that he's perceptive and intuitive. I'm gonna try be equal. I feel like this reading, I've been a bit Park's just been weird. I should put it on Taehyung as well. He doesn't seem to be very perceptive and intuitive of Park, and how he's handling Park's actions and all of that, in terms of I feel like Taehyung is just appreciating the help, taking it for granted, and potentially, festering resentment in Park, which could make him do bad things. Not blaming Taehyung, but potentially there is an issue with that lack of perception and intuitiveness on Taehyung's end, if that makes sense. Trying to be fair and equal. And there is open communication, which I feel goes back to the compromise, which the positives we need to focus on sometimes. Taehyung's Mercury square Park's Pluto. There are frequent intellectual arguments, and they both may hold onto issues for too long, which we did see how they need to work on issues as they come. Seeing this makes me think and not be surprised that there seems to be a festering here, especially on Park's end, building up resentment towards Taehyung. If he is holding on issues, he's not expressing anything, they're not dealing with as they go. It's not shocking to see that, there is that resentment growing and all of that. Taehyung is overwhelmed by this dynamic, and Taehyung wants to understand Park deeply. I wonder how old Taehyung was and is when this relationship with Park happened. Does that make sense? Because I feel I wouldn't be shocked, as in some ways, he is obviously younger than him. I wonder if maybe he was a bit newer in the industry and a bit more immature, and not as literally just not as mature as he could have been, which we did see he matures from this whole thing. So I wonder if it is just a immaturity thing and just a youth thing where he is a bit more overwhelmed here, and he's just trying to understand Park, but not necessarily having the experience to understand him, if that makes sense. Taehyung feels controlled by Park, and Park wants to know Taehyung's secrets. Yeah, this is weird thing with Park. I don't like it. Park tries to control Taehyung's thoughts. Nice, which I assume could be why he doesn't really care about Taehyung's emotions and all that. It's like he has a vision for him and Taehyung must follow it, sort of thing. Park's Mercury trine Taehyung's Mars. Taehyung stimulates Park's mind and Taehyung energizes Park. Not in a great way considering everything else we've seen. Taehyung helps Park develop his ideas. I really hope this isn't like a creative sense. I'm sticking to that, hopefully. Park teaches Taehyung how to be more reasonable. They both move forward in this relationship, which in my head, I'm also going to try to be positive with this because we did say that they both mature. It's transformative. I really hope but we also have seen those deteriorating factors. So I hope moving forward is they move literally forward away from this relationship and take something from it that's positive, beneficial for them, where they can learn and all of that. Park helps Taehyung to problem solve and there's healthy intellectual competition. They work well together and Taehyung takes Park's words personally. Yeah, it seems like there is this sort of immaturity with Taehyung, which is not surprisingly so. If he was quite young and new to the industry when he met Park, I'm not surprised. They enjoy debating together, which is where I assume, because we did see that they likely bicker a lot, so I assume potentially they do like debating, but they can very quickly go into a bit of, bickering and all of that. Park's Mercury square Taehyung's Jupiter. It's a relationship that expands consciousness. I really hope so for the personal sake. Taehyung helps Park go through hard times with optimism, and promising more is a problem. There's a habit of interrupting, which we did see on, I believe it was Park's, and they tends to interrupt, so that's repeated there a bit. Taehyung is frustrated with Park's analytical approach. I assume this would be in terms of the emotions that Taehyung kind of has to repress here, because we've been seeing consistently a few times on Park's and Taehyung's emotions just don't matter here. I wonder, he's just focused on business, and maybe in terms of their approach to music, maybe Taehyung is a bit more emotional with things, whereas Park is a bit more analytical, and that's where they potentially could clash practically. Taehyung may come off as holier than thou. I mean, if he's a young musician here, I'm sure he would fall into that sort of mentality of I'm better than you and all of that. I'm the new fresh face. Lack of understanding regarding each other's ideas. Yeah, I feel they have the potential to accept the other's ideas, but when it comes to the root cause of things, I think these two are quite lost of each other on that. There's communication difficulties and frequent misunderstandings happen. There's a strong mental and intellectual bond. So it seems I feel practically they are fine. It just seems to be an issue in terms of the root cause of the ideas and accepting those ideas, if that makes sense, in their approach to things. It seems they are able to go through past that and create music together, whatever they do, but there is definitely a bit of bumps to get there. Debates can turn into arguments, which we did see enjoying debating together, and also that they bicker a lot, so that is there again. They have different philosophical views. We haven't seen a whole lot when it comes to their views on the world, I think, so that's there. Taehyung's Mercury trine Park's Uranus. Park sees Taehyung as an intellectual companion, and they're perceptive and intuitive of each other, which we are seeing again, but it seems to be a bit more on Park's, and we still haven't really seen a whole lot with Taehyung being, showing any signs of perception and intuitive, positive or not. They work on goals together and they have open communication. They encourage each other's visions. I feel the result of the vision, does that make sense? I feel if these two come to each other with the final-ish idea, then they can go ahead with that and they're able to work with that. But I feel if, I don't know, Taehyung was oh, I have this idea, I want to, explore this emotion, blah, blah, blah. I feel Park would simply not understand that, and vice versa. If Park was this is going to be really good based on, I don't know, previous analytics or statistics, I feel that wouldn't really connect with Park. I feel the way these two would work together the best is when they're giving like the draft of it rather than like the root of the idea. Hopefully that made sense. Park becomes more inventive around Taehyung. Park's Mercury trine Taehyung's Neptune. Taehyung inspires Park's imagination, which we literally just see he's becoming more inventive around Taehyung. They get each other and they share an appreciation for the arts and they're forgiving of each other, which we haven't seen a whole lot of like forgiving, like sort of those softening elements of things, which I mean, I guess it's good for like practical career work-wise sake. So now it's time for Venus. We have Taehyung's Venus in Aquarius and Park's Venus in Libra. These are both air signs. It's an intellectually stimulating relationship, that is one way to put it. They love talking together and it's a respectful and equal relationship. I mean, respectful in some ways. I wouldn't exactly say equal. The only way I'm like this could be equal is in the like the power struggles things. In their own way they are dominant, but it's just challenging though for them. It seems like they work through conflicts reasonably. Their Venus signs are trined together, so they enjoy each other's company and they share mutual community. I assume it would be the whole music community and all of that. They appreciate how the other dresses, handles money and socializes. That could be another way, like, because we are seeing there is some kind of alignment practically. I wonder if it is in like a money sense, like the way maybe they spend their money on the music and like the way they budget their projects and all of that. That could be very well be the area where they do get along practically. They both have a desire to make the other happy, which we are seeing again. Park's Venus trine Taehyung's Jupiter. Park appreciates Taehyung as a friend. I hope so. I mean, we haven't seen anything otherwise. Like, it just, there is this weird element of like taking advantage of Taehyung. They share inside jokes and they see the good in each other, which you could also potentially see as like another softening factor, potentially like what really helps this relationship last a bit longer. Like, it's like a preservative to the relationship. Like, eventually it's going to expire, but there is like a bit to keep it going. They're a financially abundant couple and they make each other feel more confident. They thrive in each other's company and they're a popular couple, which I think we've seen already a couple times sprinkled here, that they're social and all of that. Taehyung improves Park's social life. I mean, I'm not really surprised. Like, the way I'm seeing it, I don't know what Park is. We're going to, we're at Venus. I still don't really know what he's here for, what his position is. But like with Taehyung, he seems to be like, I'm seeing he's like the new, like hot new artist sort of thing. And like very cliche Disney movie, like he's able to go to all the parties now and all of that, and like Park is just there kind of like in the background tagging along, if that makes sense. That's kind of like what I'm seeing here. Taehyung's Venus trine Park's Saturn. Park stabilizes Taehyung's emotions in the sense of potential, like the way I'm seeing it with what we've been seeing with Park and how he sort of views Taehyung's emotions. It seems like stabilizing is just another word for suppressing his emotions, honestly. There is strong commitment and they sacrifice for the other, which I think we did see that Park sacrifices here. They see the relationship as everlasting. Again, another sort of like, forgiving, softening, glowing factor. Even though it seems like this has an end to it, they help each other in career and Taehyung admires Park's strength. So now it's time for Mars. We have Taehyung's Mars in Capricorn and Park's Mars in Cancer. These are sister polarity signs, also cardinal signs. Park is protective of Taehyung in a weird way. He seems to be. It's just, there's a lot of things in this reading with Park that I'm like, he's so weird. Like, but in a way, like, yeah, there is a weird protective, like, I want to help him, but what are his intentions, is my thought. They calmly solve problems, and it's a stable relationship. Taehyung is hard on Park, which potentially could be, because we did see, in the beginning, they both find each other a bit too sensitive. So, which kind of implies that they both can be a bit critical or harsh on each other. So this is kind of repeated of that. Taehyung's Mars sextile Park's Uranus. They encourage each other's independence. I don't think we've seen this before. I feel like we've seen that someone's independence threatens the other or something like that before. It's an experimental relationship and they both share humanitarian interests. Park makes Taehyung anxious. Me too, honestly. Taehyung's Mars square Park's Pluto. There are power struggles we're seeing again, and external influences challenged them. Interesting. The only way I could see this, because we have seen a whole lot, like they're social, they're popular and all of that. I wonder if maybe like the people around them and all of that is what challenges them. Taehyung's blunt nature triggers Park's inner issues. So I think this is going back to the sensitivity, and we did just see that Taehyung is quite hard on Park. They dig into each other's psyche and there's a brutal transformation. They need to deal with their own issues instead of fighting. Yeah, that always helps, doesn't it? Park's Mars opposite Taehyung's Uranus. They have frequent arguments, and Park needs to learn to not take Taehyung's actions personally. I feel like this would be maybe related to like Park, you know, obviously we've the whole generosity thing on Park's end where he seems to build resentment and all of that. You know, I think it is just an immaturity thing on Taehyung's, and that maybe he's not as appreciative or he's just taking it for granted. It's not a personal thing towards Park, it's just how he is at his age, potentially. Park's Mars opposite Taehyung's Neptune. There's opposite approaches to taking risks. I feel like, yeah, like I want to skew this a bit. I feel like there's opposite approaches in terms of like how, I mean, music is a risky industry, so you could kind of see it that way, but there is that like opposite approach to like making music and why they're doing it and all of that, or whatever projects they're working on. There seems to be an opposite approach to that and how they get ideas and everything. They argue about the differences between their wants. Yeah, I feel like this would be, again, in terms of like what they want out of this relationship potentially, and also why they want to do music and whatever art projects they do. Park's Mars, Trine Taehyung's Pluto. It's intense and they accomplish a lot together. I'm sure they do. You know, it's just the personal dynamic is a bit, there's lots of primitive energy. In a way, yeah, I agree. Like, they definitely have that. They enjoy the power play between them. Look, at the end of the day, like, I feel very, like, weird and uncomfortable in this. Like, you know, Park makes Taehyung anxious, agreed. This is a very weird, anxious-y reading for me. But you know, at the end of the day, if this is what works for them, like we have been seeing those deteriorating factors, so which makes me think that it's not really working for them, you know, in the long term. But if in the moment they're enjoying the power play while it lasts, I mean, good for them, I guess. All power to them. They both go for big changes here, not surprisingly, so we've been seeing that. Potential for both to get possessive. Also, I mostly on like Park's end I see this. On Taehyung's end a little bit. Park helps bring out Taehyung's subconscious to the surface, which we did see that they both uncover the other's blind spots, so potentially maybe Park is doing a bit more for Taehyung in terms of that. So that was the final aspect, bringing us to the end of the reading. If you are still watching, please share your thoughts below. I'd be very curious to see what you guys have to say about this one. Especially if you're fans of these two, because I don't know about you, this was a very weird reading. Park is very odd to me. I'm very curious about what he does and like his whole position in the music industry. Like, I don't know if he's some assistant or some producer or some just the sound, like the soundboard guy in the studio, because like it's very weird. It's just very icky after this reading. And if you have made it this far, please consider subscribing for more. I post these readings weekly. And besides that, give this video a like and I will see you guys next time. Bye! And a shout out to my astrology enthusiasts, Monkey Girl and Sky Games Vlog Hawker. Thank you for supporting the channel. If you would also like a shout out and get early access to new videos, click the join button below to join the memberships. There are 2 tiers, the observers and enthusiasts. So thank you again, Monkey Girl and Sky Games Vlog Hawker, for supporting the channel.